Hi, I'm Brian Schiffman, the President and CEO of the Vaughan Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you all here on Facebook Live on our chat, really discussing all that's going on, incredibly difficult and challenging time for everyone. I'm the President and CEO of the Vaughan Chamber of Commerce. I know many of you that are watching at home, and we want to be with you and here for you throughout this difficult time. That's why we've launched this business webinar series. To take you through all the noise and uncertainty that's happening and go through topics and help explain them. So today we're going to be talking about accounting and financials in terms of the myriad of information and business supports that have been provided by all levels of government. I know it's challenging to go through it all, so I'm glad we have an expert here to take us through. Going forward, the Vaughan Chamber, we're a membership organization. We want to be there for you, so we will be doing webinars on a series of topics that will help you, such as employment law or dealing with the stress and anxiety of working from home, marketing and sales from home. These are some of the topics we're looking at. I wanted to stress that amidst all the uncertainty, the one thing I don't want you to have to do is go online on Google and search all these press releases to see what the most current information is. So you can go direct on our website. You're going to go to the home page. It says COVID-19 Business Resources. Then you're going to click that. It'll take you to the Business Resources page, and it gives you almost real-time information on all the business supports being provided by the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Also from there, you can click on business tips from our members, from accounting firms and employment lawyers and those from the insurance industry to see what they're saying to help you through this pandemic. So I encourage you to go on there often. Also, we've launched, because we want to help you sell from home for those who can, we've launched a Facebook marketplace as well. You're already on Facebook right now watching, so you can check that out, and I encourage you to advertise. And we certainly wish you well. Without further ado, I wanted to welcome Frank Fazzari, who's here with us. Frank is an incredible champion for the business community, a great friend of the Vaughan Chamber. He's been in practicing accounting for over 35 years, 31 years as he's the manager for Fazzari and Partners. And Frank, his involvement with Humber River and others, he has a lot of different clients and industry verticals. They're all struggling through this maze of information on accounting. And Frank, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here to talk us through this.
Brian, thanks for that introduction. And before I begin my presentation, I want to thank you personally and the Vaughan Chambers for everything you do. It's incredible to have support from an organization like the Vaughan Chambers in this time of need, in this time when we're helping each other. So I want to thank you before I begin. So on that note, I'm going to begin my presentation, and I'm going to turn to the first slide. And the first comment I've got is there's no script, there's no playbook. This environment that we're in right now, as Brian mentioned, is very difficult. It's never been seen before. In fact, I read a quote from Warren Buffett the other day. He said it took him he's 89 years old, and it took him 89 years to see this pandemic, or to see what's going on in a pandemic. So he's obviously a leader in business. He's never seen it. We've never seen it. But you know what? We'll get through it. We're going to get through it. And how we're going to get through it, one of the good things about what's coming out of this event is we're helping each other. I told Brian a story the other day about as we started the shutdown of the practice or the working from home, and our clients are doing the same. What did I do? I reached out to a competitor, a friend of mine who's in the same business. But we've known each other for many, many, many years, and we're somewhat comforting each other going through this. He's giving me his ideas, what we're doing. He's asking me for our ideas, and we've been constantly communicating with each other. From that experience, I was at a client's the other day, and we were talking about this pandemic and how he's dealing with it. And he says, funny thing is, I called my competitors the other day. People have reached out to me that I've never heard from before. So that's the good thing that's come out of this. There's nobody who's immune from it, but everybody is willing to listen and help you. So don't feel it's like it's unusual to call somebody you would love to hear from because you think they might have some advice for you. We're going to help each other, and we're going to get through this. One thing for sure, I know my practice, and I know from clients, they're changed already, and it's going to be permanent. We've always had working from home. We never had the whole office working from home, and now we have the whole office working from home. We like it and we don't like it. There are good things and bad things. We're learning. But I know one thing for sure, and this is again talking from clients and from my own personal experience, things will be different down the road. We're going to probably have a hybrid of working from home and working at the office. We're using Skype, Zoom, and forms of media we've never used before. And in fact, this is my first ever webinar. My staff have been on using webinars for a long time. They've been encouraging me, and I'm a little bit of a dinosaur relative to my staff. So I'm enjoying it. I'm like, this is great. This is fantastic. So from that, business will be different, and we will recover. Look at the great, I'm not insinuating we're in the Great Depression, but Great Depression, the world got out of it. In 1981, when the interest rates were 21%, I remember that I was in school, and I remember the impact of that. We got out of it. 2008, we had the financial crisis. We got out of it. We'll get out of it. This one's going to be different, definitely different, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get out of it. Just hang on, hang tight, and we'll get out of it. And that brings me to my second slide. I think what the most important thing you can do, and what I've seen a lot of people do right now, is preserve cash. I was on a webinar the other day. Actually, I was with people, accounting firms from all over the world, from Zimbabwe to New Zealand to the UK, the US, and the first topic was advising clients on how to preserve cash. When this happened, I thought about it. Talking to my competitor, they're thinking about it. Everybody's thinking about it. It's not a bad word to say let's preserve our cash. In other words, let's keep our balance sheet really, really strong. And so so everybody's doing this. And so in doing that, what you have to do, I believe, and this is what I've done for myself, our practice, and with clients, I started with in preserving cash. You gotta eliminate expenses, you gotta defer expenses, or you gotta collect faster. But to give you a good sense as to where to target, we took a high-level review of balance sheet and income statement. Get out your financial statements. Take a look at them. Let them jog your memory as to what your business looks like from a financial perspective. It's a good time to look at some historical information on figuring out how to build for the future. One tool that we found very, very useful, and 90% of the accountants in the country could produce it. So go to your accountant, ask them for a 5-year trial balance, and you can get the recent 5 years, all the details in your chart of accounts, and you can look at every expense, every balance sheet item, and go through it with a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, what can I cut? What can I preserve in terms of how can it help me preserve my cash flow? Go through line by line. I had a client, we were going through it the other day, and he was spending a lot of money on the 407, and he spends a lot of money on equipment, vehicles and transportation. And that particular expense jogged his memory to say, by looking at the 5-year trial balance, to say, you know what, I got an idea. You know what, the roads are empty. We're going to stop using it. Our 50 trucks on the road, we're going to tell them, you know what, the 407 they used as a means to save time, and given that the roads are almost, there's very little traffic as you can see on the roads that you travel, it jogged his memory, this review of the 5-year trial balance. That's one small expense in his large organization. So that's a good way to put things in perspective. And then once you get that financial information, do a bottom-up budget. Go through and do a cash flow analysis, especially for the next 6 months. And I would look at your inflows, your outflows, and I would do it in different levels. The optimistic, pessimistic, in the middle. Get a gauge on what your business you think is going to go through and help you to help you preserve the cash. And part of the process is the easiest is go through your payables, your disbursements, and determine what really needs to be, what checks really need to be released, and maybe which ones can be deferred. In that process, I highly recommend you call your suppliers and say, you know the situation we're in, this is what I have to do, I hope you don't mind. If you have loyal suppliers, which most of us do, they will work with you. They will work with you, and it's not unusual to ask for the help when you need it, especially when you have loyal suppliers. The other thing on the other end of it is collect faster. Now, you might be on the receiving end of a call. However, there are clients and customers that will gladly help you out when you need it. And so collect faster. Encourage the use of Visa and whatnot. So in the end, focus on preserving some cash during this time of need. Take a look at your financials. Take a look at the details that affect your business in terms of expenditures, expenses, and whatnot, and make some tough decisions. You're not in it alone. Everybody's doing it. And it's a worthwhile exercise. You're going to learn a lot more about your business than you would have otherwise learned. We have more time on our hands, so why not? So now I want to turn to some of the programs that are directly available for you to consider. So I'm going to turn to my next slide. There's been a lot of government announcements at all levels, the federal, provincial, and municipal. And they're constant and often the releases, and often there's very little details. And they're changing. I'm going to talk about one wage subsidy. It's very different today than the original one that they released. They have a new one, in fact, and that's what's happening at the government levels. But they're in it in difficult times like us. They don't know how to react. They don't know how long this is going to last. They don't know how they can preserve cash. They're going through the same exercise. So, and in their cases, how much can they borrow it often to provide some of these programs? So there's a lot of programs from the federal government, provincial government, and municipal governments. And remember, they're changing. I'm going to get into some of the federal programs right now, so I'm going to turn to slide 5. So the big announcement that everybody's been waiting was on the wage subsidy, the new wage subsidy. On March 30th, our Prime Minister spoke in the news about the new wage subsidy, and this is probably the one that's gained the most attention. It's the one that everybody has been waiting for, especially for those businesses that are still operating like mine, and you've got your staff all working from home, and you're looking for some subsidies if at all possible. So this
Frank, can there's a lot of people watching actually, and they're very interested, and we actually had a request if you could talk a bit louder, which means that they're certainly listening.
Okay, good. I will. How's that? Is that better?
You sound great to me.
Okay, sorry, I'll try to speak up. So the new wage subsidy, as you'll see on the slide, is 75% of the remuneration paid up to $78,700, and that's per employee. It sounds like a huge incentive. It is a good incentive, but you have to remember, it's not 75% of $58,700. It's actually $847 per week, and the maximum is $10,164. I have question marks there because there's still a lot of uncertainty about the actual amount, but we're quite certain today that it's going to be the $847 a week to a maximum of $10,164. We're hoping that at the end of this you consuming that amount, that if we're still affected by by this pandemic, our businesses are virtually shut down, the government will continue to extend it, but we don't know. Now, to be eligible for it, there's a bunch of eligibility requirements, and you have to be careful that you fit the eligibility requirements. The first is your revenues have to decline by 30%. Your revenues have to decline by 30% in March, April, and May. So they have to decline by 30%. And so the program runs from March the 15th, 2020 to June 6, 2020. I'm going to turn to my next slide. When the Prime Minister made his announcement on March the 30th about the program, and then Moreau subsequently confirmed on April the 1st, and more details have been released. Originally, he said that you didn't have to pay the other 25%, but now it's come clear that you've got to have the employees and you got to be paying the 25%. The unfortunate part about the program is if you started your business in 2019 and you didn't have any revenues in March, April, or May, then you can't. Then you're not entitled to the wage subsidy. So. Nonetheless, that's the rules, and you can apply in about 3 weeks, and checks should be available in 6 weeks, and you have to apply every month. So you have to apply every month. So in about 3 weeks, you'll be able to get the form, you do your application, and checks will start being available in 6 weeks. Now, the original 25,000 wage subsidy, one of the first that came out, is still applicable, and it's 10% of wages paid from March the 18th to June the 20th. It's capped at 25%, but the difference with this wage subsidy is you take a deduction from your source deductions, whereas the other one, the one I just talked about, the new one that was released on March the 30th, is you actually get a check. So they're two different wage subsidies. And if you take one, it affects the other. So you got to be really careful. And also the $25,000 wage subsidy, you have to share it with all your associated companies. I'm going to turn to the next slide. Another good program is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. It's $2,000 a month for 4 months. This is a good program, and it opens on the applications open on April the 6th, or otherwise Monday. We have a feeling the federal government is going to get overwhelmed with requests on this. So be patient, like all these programs, like we saw with EI. Their systems aren't set up for this volume, so it might take you a couple of days to start applying, but nonetheless, it's open on April the 6th, the applications. And you have to reapply every 4 weeks. And in order to benefit from the program, you had to have earned income of at least $5,000 in 2019. This is an excellent program. If you're self-employed, it's a good, and it's also a good alternative to EI. The next program I want to talk about is the Canada Emergency Business Account. So through your banks, the federal government is offering $40,000 lines of credit. And these are guaranteed by the federal government. It's interest-free for the first year, and up to $10,000 could be forgiven. The banks are already accepting applications. I got an email blast from my bank yesterday, and they say we're open for accepting applications for this. So contact your banks. It's administered through the banks. It's a very good program, and you may not even need it. But you know what? In an effort to preserve your cash, you might want to just apply, see if you're eligible, and keep the line of credit. You're not paying any interest, so it doesn't hurt you. It's worth pursuing. Another government program is employment insurance. The government enhanced it. No waiting period. You apply. You need an ROI. You need ROE. You need an ROE. So you still have to obtain the ROE. There's been many deferrals, many filing deferrals, and I encourage you to go on the website of the Vaughan Chambers, get the details, because there's so many deferrals. For instance, September, October, and November corporate tax filings are deferred, and they're deferred until June the 1st. It doesn't mean you don't have to do your tax returns. You still have to get them done, but it's giving you more time. Check for all the details. Trust have been deferred. Trust returns have been deferred. Partnership returns have been deferred. One of the things that people are misled by is HST. HST payments are deferred. HST payments are deferred until June the 1st, but you still have to file your returns. You still have to file your returns to avoid any penalties. Now I'm going to turn to the next slide. As I just mentioned, HST payments are deferred until after March, and it's moved to June the 1st. Corporate taxes and installments that are due, they're extended to August 31st, 2020. So there's no interest and penalties, so you can defer them. One of the big releases, CRA audits and collection activities. For those of you who manage those or experienced those a lot during the last little while, the relief is they've suspended all that activity for the time being. So that'll give you some relief. I put up on the slide a website that you want to check for filing deadlines and whatnot that you may want to consider. Again, the Vaughan Chambers has an excellent site, and you can get a lot of the details there. The next slide, I talk about some of the Ontario government programs. So Ontario government has allowed you to defer WSI premiums are deferred until September the 30th. So that's a good program. So if you can defer your WSI premiums in the event of preserving cash, that's a good one. EHT exemption. Right now, it was $450,000 for an associated group of companies. The government now said for an associated group of companies, we're increasing the exemption to $1 million for 2020. So that's a nice program that you can take advantage. Our city has been one of the leaders in change and the leaders in dealing with this, and one of the first to introduce the deferral of interim tax payments to June the 1st. No penalties. So take advantage of that to preserve your cash. And they've also canceled some planned water and wastewater increases. On the next slide, I just want to say to everybody, we're going to be stronger, we're going to be resilient, and we're going to be agile. We will change, and we'll get there.
Thank you, Frank. I know our members and the business community certainly appreciate your support. I would certainly encourage anyone watching from home, you should be getting in touch with your accountants or with Frank, because obviously there's a lot of nuance to a lot of these programs, a lot of the details still coming out. Frank, what we have is we have a series of questions that were submitted to us in advance by some of our members, and we also, if those watching from home have questions for us, you can put them on the comments on Facebook Live. Those are being fed to me by our staff team. And so let's go right into them. The first question, Frank, is you talked about cash is king, preserving cash. You even gave an example how you told a client, see if you can cut down on 407 charges right now because there's no traffic. So why not take the 401? I think that's practical advice. Are there other areas that you're recommending to your clients that they should really look at specifically for preserving cash?
So another area is capital expenditures. As much as that's going to hurt us down the road, so a lot of clients this time of year when they have planned their capital expenditures, buy machinery, buy computers, or whatever. So that's one that or buy equipment or buy vehicles. That's one that we've gone through with clients, and the decision has been postponed, all of them. And everybody is doing it, other than technology, because I think technology is what's going to get us through the next little while. So whatever you need to enhance your business through technology, do that. You need those tools. So that's another example of something that we've done with a client. Go through their capital expenditures, say, okay, what do you really need? What don't you need? And we're finding that most of it, 90%, is not required at this time.
Yeah, it's good advice. Why don't we go back to the one that everybody wants to talk about, which is the wage subsidy? So I think you did a good job of explaining the nuance of the 10,164 and the 847 a week. Would you mind going into, can you do it again? Just because I think there's some people that are just tuning in, and this is such an important one. Even things about, how do I apply? I know that you're supposed to get your checks within 6 weeks. It could be less. We're not sure. Hopefully, I know there's a liquidity crunch is the number one thing we're hearing from business. So just how do I apply? How do I fill out the form? Is it a direct deposit? I know you've covered some of that, but I think there's people who would like more detail.
Okay, so I haven't seen the form, and I believe the form hasn't been posted. Like all government programs, there will be a form. I guarantee you there's going to be a form. But we haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it as of last night. But there'll be a form. When the forms are available, hopefully they'll be available very, very soon. And the government is also encouraging direct deposits. So you had just said, I should have mentioned that, is direct deposits. So the government is going to encourage people to give them their account details so they can do direct deposits. Again, it's going to be the program runs from March the 15th, 2020 to June the 6th, 2020. And it's a maximum of $847 per week per employee. So you got to go through your employees, see what they're making, and you do the calculation, and there's a test, a lower of or whatnot. But the maximum you can get is 75% of the remuneration at $58,700 divided by 52 weeks, and you get to $44,000, and then that's how you get there. And then you get to 75% of the 58. Then you divide it by 52 weeks, and that's how you get the $847. I should mention one of the things I didn't mention is they said that wages paid to related parties will not. You cannot get the subsidy for related party wages. So a lot of managers, families on business that are employed by businesses their wages will not be entitled to the wage subsidy. So when I say all employees on this slide, I should have said all employees except for related party employees. And the decline in revenue is the decline in revenue. So they're backdating it to March. So they're backdating it to March. So you got to look at your revenue in March 2019. Compare it to your revenue in March 2020. If there is a 30% decline, you're entitled. If there's not, you're not entitled. So you have to do that for every month.
So the good news for employers would be that if you didn't qualify for March, you theoretically could still meet that threshold for, say, April. Correct?
Correct. Yes. So it's you have to reapply for every month. So it's a month-to-month application, and so if you don't get it in March, doesn't mean you're not entitled to it in April. Or if you're if you're not entitled to it in April, doesn't mean you're not entitled to it in May. And an important part of it is the 25%. Originally, the Prime Minister said that they were hoping people would pay the 25%, but now it looks like you have to pay the other 25%, which kind of makes sense because if you have the employees, you're going to have them employed, and unless you give them a cut in wages.
Yeah, and I wanted to so that's the big topic people want to know about. Let's go into the contract workers a bit. You mentioned that this is the CERB program. It's $2,000 a month. So it's sort of a combined question of how do you apply for that? And also the specific question another one asked us is, is the wage subsidy available for contract workers? So clearly the answer is they should be applying for the CERB, but I'll let you answer that.
So the CERB is designed for self-employed individuals. So it's designed for self-employed individuals. Okay. And I remember on April the 6th, there was one Monday, you can start applying. Be patient, because I'm sure there's going to be thousands of people applying. So, but you'll be entitled to it. So, you have to reapply every 4 weeks, and you got to remember you have to have earned income of at least $5,000 for 2019. So look at your financial statements. If you're self-employed, look at what you've billed for 2019. Determine that you've earn 5,000, because the government, like all these programs, there's going to be, I'm sure there's going to be audits or random audits subsequent to the programs. So, but you got to make sure that you've earned the $5,000. And if you're self-employed, you know, depending on your year in 2019, you may have lost money. If you've lost money and you don't have any earned income, then you're not going to be entitled to the program.
So you know what, that's a good distinction you made. So if you're self-employed, you're looking at the CERB, and this is the one, obviously, if you're not able to work, you might be home with a loved one who's sick because of COVID-19. You're staying home to take care of your kids. But so then the other question was, does the wage subsidy apply? What do we do with contract workers? What are we applying for there?
So the wage subsidy does not apply to contract workers, because if they're self-employed, they're subcontractors, it does not apply. It applies to employees. So employees that are effectively T4'd earn employment income. So if a business has a bunch of subcontractors, the wage subsidy does not apply to those subcontractors. They have to be employees that are regularly employed.
Got it. And do employers still have to provide records of employment, ROEs, to their employees, or can they just apply for EI regardless?
Must obtain the ROEs, and we've experienced a lot of clients who all our clients manage their own payroll are experiencing difficulty getting the ROEs, but they'll get them eventually, and you can get them online, but you'll get them, but you have to complete them.
Okay, so another related question was, is it possible for employees to apply for both, to apply for one of the EI programs and receive extra top-up payments from their employers? So
that aspect of EI has not changed. So EI has always allowed you to go to be employed while collecting EI. However, any income you earn from being employed reduces the EI entitlement. Yes, you can work, but it will reduce your EI entitlement, 50 cents on the dollar.
Okay. And another question we got is, can you explain the HST filing? Is the filing date still June 15 for self-employed?
So all filing deadlines have been deferred to June the 1st for those for March and onward.
But the corporate, what about the corporate tax filing deadline?
So for corporate tax returns,
I know I've asked about HST, but I figure I'll ask you about this as well.
Corporate tax returns. So if you have a September 30th year end, October 31st year end, or November 30th year end, you don't have to file. You don't have to file into June the 1st, 2020. Normally, you have to file no later than 6 months after. So 6 months after. And so you now you get extended to June the 1st. One of the things I should mention is the personal tax filing deadline. The personal tax filing deadline is normally April the 30th, and now that's been pushed to June the 1st. However, if you think you're entitled to a refund, get your tax return in early. I know there's a lot of accountants that have lots of capacity right now to do your filings, so get them in early if you think you're entitled to a refund.
I think that's a very good point. So if you think you're entitled to a refund, you're recommending get your taxes in early.
Yes.
If you think you owe taxes or you're not entitled to a refund, your recommendation is to defer as long as you can.
Yeah. Preserve that cash. Preserve that cash at home and preserve that cash in your business.
So one of the things that seems related to this is when we're talking about preserving cash, there's this, some municipalities, Vaughan's been very forward thinking on this. They said, okay, we'll let you defer your residential and commercial property taxes. Other municipalities, that's not quite the case, or the timelines could be different. I recognize some of our business owners, they have enterprises in multiple jurisdictions. It's a bit confusing. So your recommendation, what is your recommendation to your clients on deferring property taxes when they have the option?
So I'm encouraging them to do it. But we have some clients that have a lot of cash in their balance sheets. They have a lot of cash. They're very strong, and they're not taking advantage of these programs. They says, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to continue to pay them. But for business where there is much more uncertainty, or and their balance sheets are not as strong, I say, why not defer them? Why not defer them? Because we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know the financial impact. We know businesses will not open. Some businesses will not reopen. It's all over the place. So if the program is there, why not take advantage of it? If you're unclear as whether or not you have enough cash, to me that tells me instinctively, defer the taxes. Defer it if you can defer it.
Okay. And well, another one that's related, different program, of course, is the opportunity to defer your mortgage, but there's a lot of nuance to that. So what are you recommending to your clients on that?
So it's the same thinking. It's the same thinking, and it all stems from preserving cash. I sound like a broken record, but you know, none of us have experienced what we're going through, as we said before. But from being an accountant and getting all the calls and emails and inquiries about everybody's so nervous about their balance sheet, about the cash to get, it's stressing people out. So might as well take advantage of it if you can. Take advantage of it if you can. Why not? Again, we do not know how long this is going to last. We do not know the final impact. So protect yourself and just take it. And don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you're alone. Yeah. Most people are doing it. So I encourage it.
Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with being a broken record on an important point like cash is king and helping people through this incredibly difficult time. There's so much to think about. So nothing wrong with that. Now, I know BDC is one of the two banks that's providing loans for businesses. Can you tell us what they're doing to help, what that application process looks like?
So one of the first announcements by the federal government was that they're going to give the BDC $10 billion. They're going to give them $10 billion. In anticipation of today's webinar, I actually was on their website yesterday, right? So because I'm trying to find out what the details are, and it's work in progress. But they typically help you with working capital, equipment financing, and other capital expenditures. So the federal government is I'm sure communicating with the BDC to determine what the 10 billion, how the 10 billion will be spent. I encourage you to go to their website. I wish I had more answers, but I don't. But there will be programs, and they're excellent with giving working capital loans or equipment financing loans. The process is rigorous, but not as rigorous. And the type of financing that they typically provide, like working capital, is not typically provided by the Schedule A bank. So I encourage you to go to their website, see what they're offering once these details come out, and if you need it, again, you won't be the only one. You won't be the only one, and so if you need it, I encourage you to take advantage of it.
So I have a few questions from business community on provincial aspects of taxation. Mm-hmm. Wanted to know, what's the new threshold for the employer health tax exemption?
So the old threshold was $450,000 for an associated group of companies. So if you had 10 companies, 10 payrolls, and believe it or not, a lot of people do, you have to share the $450,000 exemption. And now for 2020, the provincial government said, okay, we're going to increase the amount that you have to share between all your associated companies to $1 million. So for 2020, they've increased it to $1 million.
Okay, thank you. I muted it because I have a 4-year-old at home running around, and I'm trying to focus on you, Frank.
You're lucky.
That's true. We have to remain levity throughout this. And one of the messages that I did want to communicate to everybody, and I know you've said this often as well, is we will get through this, and we will get through this together. But it is an unbelievably unprecedented time. And again, I wanted to recommend to our members to go to the Vaughan Chamber website often on the business resource page, because we're providing pretty much real-time updates on what government is announcing. Frank, I had a couple other questions provincial related, and then a few more from members that are coming in on Facebook. The provincial government announced 5 months of interest and penalty relief for businesses to file and make payments for the majority of provincially administered taxes. We wanted to know, for which does this apply?
So our income taxes, corporate and federal, all are processed through the federal government. So they're all processed through the federal government. Where this would apply would be on things like land transfer tax. So where that program would apply would be on land transfer tax. In terms of income taxes, our provincial income taxes are paid through the federal government. So we fall under their rules. So the filings and extensions and whatnot.
Okay, and thank you. And as a follow-up, this one's a bit long, so I'm going to read it slower. The provincial government has announced a quarterly municipal remittance of education property taxes to school boards, which they say will save $1.8 billion by giving municipalities the flexibility to provide property tax deferrals. Can you elaborate how this remittance works and what savings businesses can expect on property taxes?
So this directly relates to the deferral of property taxes. The deferral of property taxes. As I said, the city of Vaughan is deferring interim tax payments to June 1st, 2020. They are able to do that because of this provincial program. So the way it works is the municipalities collect the property taxes, and a component of that property taxes is an education property tax. That portion has to be funneled to the school boards. So it gets funneled to the school boards. The government says municipalities don't send the money to the school boards. And so by not doing that, you can offer property tax relief to your residents. So that's how it's indirectly benefiting us.
Okay, thank you. So here are questions that my team are sending me. One of them is, I own shares of my corporation. I am an employee of my corporation. Will they consider me a related party and I can't claim the wage subsidy? And then do I have to go for CERB?
So related party is actually defined in the Income Tax Act, and I don't have the definition in front of me, but it also so you'll have to. There is a definition of related party. If you own a significant amount of shares, you are likely a related party. Or if your parent is the owner of the majority of the shares, or grandparent, then or sibling, then you're likely a related party. So there is a definition of related party. You have to check the definition, or we can get back to you on the definition of related party, so you can post it to your on your website.
Thanks, Frank. Nuanced question, but thank you for answering that. Another one regarding proof for the CERB. What if you have not yet filed 2019 taxes? Do you need to prove that you earned over $5,000? How do you do that?
So you're in the same boat as everybody else. Most people have not filed. If I can use our office as a poll, most people in this country haven't filed the tax returns.
Right.
So in other words, they don't have the 2019 tax return filed. They don't have notice of assessments. there is no proof. I haven't seen the form. I suspect there is going to be no proof test because the government extended deadlines. So they know that they extended the deadlines for filing personal tax returns. So however, having said that, I'm sure post the payment of the CERB, sometime in the fall or whenever this is all over, they're going to be auditing that and ask or link the payment to you of the CERB to your filing of your personal tax return. You will be subject to some kind of test down the road. You can't file. You are probably not filing now, so it's not to worry. Not to worry.
Okay, thank you. Another one we got was, can U.S. based businesses with employees residing and working in Canada apply for the wage subsidy?
All employees. Doesn't say Canadian or U.S. So if it's a Canadian business, regardless of the fact that if you have a business in Canada, regardless of who owns it, then it's considered a Canadian business, and then you can get the wage subsidy.
Okay, thank you for that. So I wanted to just ask you broadly, what are without betraying any confidentiality, what are your clients saying? What are you hearing? Because you and I are both in touch with so many businesses, and let's go with that. Like, what are they saying, and what are their immediate steps other than trying to preserve cash?
So I alluded to it earlier. Now, it was on my very first slide about we will be different. We will be different. There's two things I want to say. Two things. One is we will be different. My own personal experience, as I said, I never had as many people working from home. The whole office is working from home. We've always had remote access, but never like this. So down the road, things will be different for us. We're going to change the way we do business, and clients are in the same boat, and they're experiencing similar things. The city, the Vaughan Chambers, everybody. So you're going to operate differently down the road. If you come through this experience, you're going to be operating differently. So that's a big thing. And the second thing is, things have been good for a long time. Business was fantastic. We live in a city that's so pro-business. We've got a chamber that's promoting our businesses. So business has been fantastic. So it's been difficult to step back and critically assess our businesses. But people are doing that now. They're saying, okay, I'm going to right-size my business now. So people already are making plans on, aside from the difference in the way we're going to operate, there's some tough decisions that people have been avoiding, not thinking about, and they're going to make them during this period or when they come out. And I've talked to a lot of clients, met with clients through Skype and whatnot, and that's what they're saying. They say, you know what, I've got this area of my business that there's problems. I've let it go for a long time. I'm going to make these tough decisions now. So people are going to make some tough decisions. Businesses will be different. There's no doubt they're going to be different.
Yeah, well, I was on a chat last night and listening to a number of economists talking about where we are, and one saying we're already in a recession, and talking about a potential V-shaped recovery, and reality being they don't expect a V-shaped recovery because we're going to see this come back to our economy come back slower just because of the nature of where we are as a situation. We know we are going to recover. But it's going to take some time, and there's going to be some ups and downs throughout. So I think, I would re-stress your point about preserving cash and thinking short and long term, because it's not that in 3 months we're going to be totally recovered. There's going to be some blips. Certain industries, like unfortunately, tourism and hospitality, have really been really hurt by this. And depending on how things correct themselves, I think you'll see a slow recovery for those industries, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know what? I was also talking to an economist with one of the banks, and she was giving us her predictions on what's going to happen, and I think this is going to happen. there will be a spike. There'll be a recovery. She had predicted that. So we're going to have negative growth of about 11, 12% this quarter and the next. But we will recover late in 2020 or early 2021. We won't recover to the same extent. There is going to be a spike, but we will not recover to the same extent. And maybe, as you said, the spikes will be periodic spikes. But what that tells me is we are going to be busy. We are. So don't get too lean. Don't hurt your business too much so that you cannot take advantage of the recovery. Will we recover everything lost? No, I doubt it. But there will be a spike, so we have to be ready for that spike.
Yeah, agreed. Frank, there's another question. I feel like you've already answered it, but I just think it's so important. I'm going to ask it again and give you, just because some people are just tuning in now. So is the question we asked earlier, what if you've not filed your 2019 tax return, which you said the majority of Canadians have not? How will they measure the $5,000 in 2019 revenue?
So the form, again, is coming out on Monday. I suspect there's going to be no request to provide a notice of assessment, which is something the CRA sends you after you file your tax return. I suspect they're going to say they're not going to request a notice of assessment for 2019 because they realize that a lot of people have not filed their 2019 tax returns. However, as I had mentioned, and I think once this is all over, at some point in time, the government is going to check. They can easily check between. They have access to your CRA account to see what your earned income was post this crisis. They'll see what it is in 2019. So once you file, at some point, they'll be able to cross-reference the application to your filing. I don't think you're going to be required to file anything when you start that application on Monday, when we see those applications regarding proving that you made the $5,000. But there will be audits in sometime in the future.
Thank you. And for our audience watching at home, and for those who are going to be able to watch this in the future, because it'll be posted on Facebook, I think one of the things is if you're asking questions like that, so are so many of your colleagues. We're all in that together, and the reality is that I think Frank, he's done a great job of estimating what is likely to happen, but the government's hearing these messages from us and our chamber network in terms of challenges of how am I going to prove the $5,000 up front. So I think Frank did a good estimation of what is likely to happen, and I think things are subject to change, further improvement from our governments in terms of further support we can expect from the business community going forward. Okay, I'm going to go to this last question because I think you have definitely covered this, but an important one, and then I'm going to wrap up shortly. So if you were a small business that started their operations this year, how would you be able to qualify for some of the measures announced, given that you had no revenue in 2019?
You won't qualify for the wage subsidy. But the new one that was announced, but then there's the other wage subsidy, the $25,000 wage subsidy that's capped at $1,375 per employee. So you might qualify for that. So if you had no revenues in 2019, there's no decline in revenues. The test is you have to have a 30% decline in revenues, and that revenues is measured against your same month prior year. So if you don't have the decline, then you can't qualify. But the other wage subsidy might be applicable to you. So take a look at it and see if you apply.
No, I appreciate that, and I know that the Chamber Network is certainly advocating on behalf of business startup for further supports for that group. We know how difficult it is to manage a business, let alone start it in your first year. So we're hoping to see further support for businesses that just open moving forward. So just before I wrap up, Frank, any last words from you? What's your overriding message to the community? And then we'll come back to me. I'll just do a quick wrap up.
So we're all in this together. There's no playbook. There's no script. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to reach out to people or organizations like the Vaughan Chamber of Commerce or whatnot to ask for guidance. Nobody's been through this, and so don't feel like you're asking anything that's not important. We're all looking for guidance and help, and don't be afraid to look for guidance and help. And you'll find lots available, like these webinars, the Vaughan Chambers website and whatnot. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Brian. Thank you for doing this for your members. It's really I think it's very useful that you connect with your members and you provide information that will help them get through this.
Well, no, it's me that should thank you, Frank. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being the guinea pig for the first Business Resource webinar series, the first of many. As I mentioned, we'll be covering many topics. We will be coming back to accounting and finance for sure, and employment law, and dealing with the stress and anxiety we're all facing at home, and remote working. So we, membership organization, and we're here for the business community for sure. So managing partner, Fazzari and Partners, a lot of experience, Frank. I appreciate your insights today and helping us navigate through a lot of noise and anxiety we're all feeling when dealing with the business supports. Give the levels of government some credit for acting quickly and trying to prop up the business community for a recovery in the future. I do echo your comment that we will get through this. We are in it together. We're all experiencing it a little different with our own personal situations, but we will get through it. I wanted to leave you with a couple thoughts. On Facebook, we will post this video moving forward, so you can share it with colleagues who weren't able to join us. As I said, we'll be doing more of these. The easiest way to find out when we're doing more of these is to join our e-newsletter. When you go to our homepage on vaughnchamber.ca, it's at the bottom of the homepage. There's a button. It says join our newsletter. That's free. I'd recommend you do that because then you'll know when we're doing sessions like this. Again, I encourage you to go to our business resource webpage on our site. We showed you earlier how to get there, just because it's pretty much real-time information provided by our staff on business supports from government. I want to give Avdis and our team, he handles our GR and policy work, a big shout out for you guys have done an incredible job working with our members. We've been hearing that from our members. I wish you all success. If you need support from us, please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, Frank, thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.